Hello guys and welcome to the brand new season's Russian Football News Predictions League. The World Cup has been and gone, but nobody was really interested in that. What everybody really wanted was to get into the nitty-gritty of Russian Premier League football. Of course, this is Russian football, so the summer was not without incident. We said goodbye to Amkar with a tear in our eye. Actually, no, we didn't. We just laughed. We were happy. Angie were reprieved. In the FNL, I've lost count how many clubs went out of business or accepted voluntary relegation or were forced to be relegated. This is Russia. What more can we do, hey? But anyway, we're here for Russian Premier League action. So let's get down to that. Just very briefly though, before we do start on the previews, with the predictions game, just to be clear, we're going to go forward as usual. We're going to have the league as it's always been. It's going to be open, it's going to be free. And then we'll run 2 predictions cups, which will be for an entry fee, but for prize money. And we will donate a little bit of that to charity as well. So that's what we're doing on that front. The newsletter will be coming out. Sorry we didn't get that out during the World Cup, but we totally underestimated the workload we'd have during the tournament. Anyhow, it's Russian Premier League action. And where better to start than the league's best side ever, and that is, of course, Ural Yekaterinburg. I'm not biased at all. You may have noticed that. Anyway, we're facing Angie at home, and personally, I'm pretty pleased for this. I think it's a good opening fixture for anybody. Angie, well, they've been a mess for years now. Their transfer window's not been good. They sold or let Sergei Burizgalov go to Ural Yekaterinburg, and they've lost some of their better attacking players. Pavel Yakovlev, Arsen Khubelov have gone as well. They did sign Roland Gigalayev on loan today, I think, but they're still a fairly weak side with not much cutting edge, to be honest. Juan Liscano, another one who's gone on loan at least. So I expect Ural to win this one. Ural, though, have had a very quiet window themselves, and they have let Edgar Manucharian go for a start. Vladimir Ilyin is the only senior frontline striker that we have left. Artem Yusupov was on loan at Tyumen, and he had a very good season. Not outstanding, but good. And I think he might be brought into the fold a little bit more. However, he's untested at this level. So, I don't expect it to be high scoring, but I expect Ural to win, so I'm going for 1-0 to Ural. Okay, next up, Spartak. Now, Spartak have had a good transfer window. They brought in Samuel Gigor. Apologies for my pronunciation, but that's the best I can do. French centre-back, a lot of money, never seen him play, I'll be honest. Alexander Teshayev, we have seen play, had an excellent season for Dynamo Moscow, scored 7 goals last season in a relatively lowly side. He signed for about €1 million, €2 million, something, so it's a great deal there. Serdar Taski has left, but I don't think Spartak are going to be worried. They brought in this Gigor fellow, so I think they'll be fine. Orenburg, well, they're the big boys of the FNL. They're backed by a Gazprom subsidiary, and they have been for a few years, and they've been far too good for the second tier, but of course 2 years ago they struggled, and they were relegated. So how will they fare this time round? Well, they brought in Alexander Dovnya from SKA Khabarovsk, who had a very good season for the rock-bottom club. Andrei Chukhanov from Tyumen, who I know well again. Still only 22 years old, had a very mature season. He played at wing-back when asked, out wide, central striker. He likes to play through the middle. He's a very quick, technically gifted player. Could potentially be an interesting player for Orenburg. But they are playing Spartak away, and they have a few new players to settle in. So I'm not expecting great things from them. I expect Spartak, of course, to win, and I'm going to go for 3-0. So we'll see how that one goes. Next up, we have Rostov against Akhmat. Now, Rostov had a, typically turbulent season. Of course, Valery Karpin came in and he had a bit of a tricky start, didn't win any of his first 5 games, but then towards the end of the season he had a better run of form that solidified their place. And I think that little bit of turn up in form at the end of last season will give them that bit of hope that they need. In terms of transfer business, they brought in a couple of Swedes. They're very big on their Scandinavian players, aren't they? I think they have about 5 or 6 now. I don't know anything about them, I'm not going to lie. Denis Hadzikadunic, centre-back, 20 years old, from Malmo. for about €1 million. Don't know where Rostov are getting €1 million from, to be honest. But anyway, Anton Saletros, defensive midfielder, is 22. So young, Swedish. They've got their Scandinavian brothers in the squad already. I think it's 3 Icelandic players as well. Alexander Zuev signs permanently. And in terms of outgoing transfers, Musa Doumbia, I think, is actually a very underrated player. I'm surprised he hasn't had more of a shot at Russian football, but he's gone. But basically, they're more or less where they started, possibly slightly better. Akhmat, Akhmat, let's see, who have... Well, Roland Gugulaev, as we mentioned. Leo Jabba and Philippe Sampaio, 2 of the 4 Brazilians they signed last summer, have gone. Not for a profit, for about the same price. Facundo Pires has left permanently. Idrissa Doumbia, Ivorian 20-year-old centre midfielder, again, possibly brought in, it's going to sound harsh, but just for the sell-on value, because there is a market for the young African, Latin American players who aren't quite the biggest names in Russian football. It's just the way it is. So let's see. Akhmat did have a very leaky defence away from home last season. They conceded the second most in the whole league, outside the bottom 3, that is. So I have a sneaking suspicion Rostov are going to nick this one, actually. I think Valery Karpin, now he's had that time to bed in, he did manage to turn around the form at the end of last season, brought in a couple of younger players. Don't think it's going to be expansive. I'm going to go for 1-0, nothing more. But that's what we're going for there. Now, next, Yenisei against Zenit. Second season in a row that Zenit open their season in the Far East and they get that tricky long distance fixture out of the way. Last season, of course, away to SKA Hrabados, they opened up with a 2-0 win for Roberto Mancini's opening game. You may remember that was the game where Juan Lescano put a Rabona from the outside of the box, actually, it hit the bar, and they were pushing Zenit for the first half, but Zenit had the quality to tell. I think something similar is going to happen this time round. Sergei Semak has come in, of course, far more sensible appointment, I think most people would agree, than another big-name foreign signing. He's respected at the club, of course, he was there as a player and as a coach, so his pragmatic approach will be probably what Zenit needs, to be honest, for a little bit. They've got a bloated squad, I think something like 40 players. Loads of players have come back from loan who are not likely to be used. Hernani is one that sticks out in my mind because I thought it was useless when he was there. But they do have a lot of quality in that squad to choose from. And I think Semak, of course, he knows them. He's been working with them. So it's not like a complete outsider who's got to suddenly work out a massive puzzle in his head. Yenisei, though, interesting transfer window for them. Amkar, of course, they folded, which we were also desperately upset about. And what it meant is a lot of clubs were hoovering up their talent, and Yenisei picked up 5 of their players. They've got Fyodor Ogude and Petr Zanev are 2 that I would stand out for me. Tosno as well, of course, they got relegated down to the 3rd tier. There are major problems. David Yurchenko's arrived at Yenisei as well. All in all, they've got about 11 or 12 new players and they've let a lot go. So it's effectively airlifting a team with some Premier League experience under Dmitry Alenichev, who is proving to be a bit of a promotion maestro. That's his 2nd promotion from the 2nd tier in a few years. He brought Arsenal Tula up playing good football, we'll remember, 3 or 4 years ago. So they look like they're ready-made for a pretty good shot at survival, you'd have to say. But I think this first game might be a bit on the tricky side because they've got so many new players to knit together. They have the quality, but how do they know exactly how to knit together? Yes, there is that Amkar contingent, Darko Bodl, a Russian Football News favourite, another. But it is a new team put together. So what I'm going to say is I think Zenit will win this one. I think it will be narrow. I'm only going for a 1-0 win. Semak did get a lot of 1-0 wins or low-scoring wins at Ufa, and he understands that if he gets 3 points, that is an absolute brilliant result. Doesn't matter how they get it. First game out of the season, Far East, get it done, 3 points, get back. So they'll close out a 1-0 win, is my view. Okay, moving on. Second half of fixtures, we have Arsenal Tula against Dynamo Moscow. Oleg Kononov taking over. Now, Mirdrag Bozovic last season had a very entertaining season, very, very strong home form. I believe it was only one team won more games at home, something like that, for Arsenal Tula last season. However, and this is a big however. Stopila Sunzu was only on loan, he's gone back. Artyom Zuba was only on loan, he's gone back. Federico Rasic, Ilya Maximov, Ivan Novotseltsev, Igor Shevchenko, they've all left Arsenal Tula this summer. They haven't brought in any attacking replacements, and that's what concerns me about them. Luka Djordjevic as well scored a few goals. He's gone back to Zenit, of course. Dynamo Moscow, well, they've had a reasonable transfer window. Alexander, well, I say reasonable, no, they haven't at all. What am I talking about? They've had a worrying transfer window. Alexander Tashayev has left, has gone to Spartak. Dmitry Belorukov, yes, he's old, but he's experienced, has left as well. Alexander Zotov has gone. No signings yet. So two teams who have lost a lot of their previous season players, and therefore it's up in the air exactly how their season will start. So for that simple reason, I'm going for a draw. I'm just going to go for 0-0. We know that Russian football is low scoring. Both are going to be just trying to find their feet, and for that reason, a 0-0 draw makes sense for both, and they won't complain. I wouldn't have thought. Okay, Rubin at home to Krasnodar. Now, Rubin have had, in my view, a good transfer window because they've trimmed a lot of the deadwood out of their squad and a lot of the salaries as well. Now, I don't know how many of these would have been worth a place in the squad, but Emil Bergstrom, Sergio Sanchez, Rifat Zhemaletdinov, Ruben Roshino, Denis Karadenis is retired, Sergei Rizhikov has gone. They have brought in Vyacheslav Podvoroskin from Krasnodar, an excellent signing in my view. Of course, he played on loan and now he's there permanently. So I think, in fact, they actually have done very well. They brought in Filip Uremovic and Chico to the back line, defenders who have played in foreign leagues. I think they will bring something at least. How good they are remains to be seen, but I think they're in reasonable shape. Krasnodar have kept on to Fyodor Smolov for now, but there is a lot of talk about him possibly not being the frontline striker for the whole season. Ivan Ignatiev is really tipped to make an impression this season. I think he will. I'm not saying he'll displace Smolov permanently or even necessarily at all, but I think he'll get game time. But Smolov has stayed. But Grankvist has left. Jairzinho has left, and he's joined Dynamo Moscow. Actually, I meant to mention that in the Dynamo Moscow section. He has signed for them. That's confirmed yesterday. They brought in Christian Cueva, Uros Spajic, Dmitry Stotsky as well. So they've made some very good signings. I think overall, though, again, I'm going to say a draw because I think Kurban Badev, he didn't like a lot of the players who were not his type of player. We know he likes his lieutenants, his Cesar Navases, his Fyodor Kudryashovs of this world, and he's kept them. He's got rid of a lot of the others that were not his players. I think as well, we need to see more from Sardar Azmoun. Very disappointing output last season. Only scored towards the end of the season, and admittedly he did have that run of form. But I'm going for a draw. I'm going to go for 1-1. Both sides have got a lot of potential. They've got a lot of attacking talent, but how will they adjust to a different size squad? 1-1 for me. Ufa against the champions Lokomotiv Moscow. Now, Ufa, of course, are playing in the Europa League for the first time in their history. Their very short history. By the time you watch this, they may have already played, but I'm going to hopefully get this out on Wednesday. They play on Thursday against Christ, these names. I can't get the pronunciation right. Slovenian side. Sorry. Will that have an effect on them? Well, yes, this is one of the later games in the weekend, but they won't be travelling, and this game again is at home, but they have lost Sergei Semak, and they've lost Dmitry Stotsky as well. They haven't made a lot of moves in the transfer market either. Lokomotiv, however, Grigor Krychowiak, Jesus Christ, what is it with this weekend? The names are killing me. Former PSG player, excellent experience, West Brom as well. They have brought in Rifat Zhemaletdinov, Brian Adowu, excellent signing, I think. So the champions have improved. I think on this one, though, I still think this is going to be a draw. I think Lokomotiv away from home was slightly nervous at times last season. I'm going to go for 1-1. Krylia at home to CSK Moscow. Last game. Now, CSK Moscow have been completely revitalised. They've lost the Berezovsky brothers, Ignashevich to retirement, Pontus Wernbloom, Bivras Natko, Alexander Golovin is almost certainly going to be leaving as well. Akram Musa has returned on loan. Krylia Sovietov, well, they have brought in Maxim Konunikov, but they haven't really made a great deal of moves to improve their squad. They do have some talent. They're a very good Fener level side, but they struggled last time in the Premier League. So I'm in two minds as to what I think their season will be. However, with CSKA on that note, everybody is focusing on how they have had their squad gutted, and that is true, it absolutely has been. But they have made some interesting signings. Hordor Magnusson from Bristol City in England, Icelandic international, young. Rodrigo Becao from Brazil, again another young centre-back. They're going to take some bedding in. How they'll do, I'm not 100% sure. But Nikita Chornov returns on loan. Aaron Olanair returns on loan. He did start to show a little of the form he showed when he first arrived in Russia at CSKA Moscow, when he was on loan at Amkar last season. He showed a bit of his form. Still not sure he's the answer long term, but he is an option. And of course, don't forget the amount of youngsters that Goncharenko did start bringing through last season. Big things expected of Konstantin Kuchayev, of course. Fyodor Chalov has got to be a frontline striker this season. If he doesn't, I just do not know what the man can do. When he played, when he was given a bit of faith, he performed. And I think he is the answer for them, at least for this season. And I think he could be for a few years. And don't forget Christian Bistrovic last season came in as a 19-year-old unknown from Croatian League, and he looked excellent when he came in. And I think he could be a big player. So it's not all lost. For this game, on paper, it could be a tricky one for CSKA, but I actually think they'll win. I think they have enough of a side that they are looking to build around with the young players, and they have enough coming in to long term to build in defence. It's going to sound strange, but I believe that. Krylia, I just don't think they've improved enough to make an impression yet. So I'm going to go for a CSKA win. I'm going to go for a narrow one, so we'll go for 1-0. Guys, that is all for now. That's quite a long early preview, I admit, because there's a lot to get through, a lot of transfer news. But the bottom line is this. The Predictions League is back. It is, as usual, you do the same thing that you do every week. You comment below this preview video, or the one for that week, with your predictions, and away we go. So guys, good luck. Don't forget, if you've got any friends who are even half interested in different football leagues, or Russia in particular, of course, and they fancy a bit of fun, tell them about the Predictions League. You know what it's like. It's good fun. It's simple. It's easy. It's low maintenance, but you get to run it through the season and prove who knows the most about Russian football. So guys, good luck, and I'll see you next week.